Hey, what's up, everyone? Today we are going to walk through sound design and how I put together this trailer for my short film.
Well, I think the real problem is returning to the society.
Think things will be easier?
And as you know, societies like ours and the countries you've just mentioned are all at war.
Wait, last few minutes.
And when was I supposed to tell you, Derek?
Removing the existence of these ideologies will essentially eliminate the man-made caste system.
Do you know what it's like to watch the person you love be happy with someone else?
We have a chance to save ourselves, to save our humanity from itself, to reprogram ourselves to be more effective members of society.
So sound design is something that I'm kind of just working on, just trying to get better at by using some of the tools that I have. As you know, visuals are great, but they can be enhanced by having some really, really good audio. So making sure that you have sound enhance your films really helps out a lot and can take something that's pretty mundane and bring it to something that is pretty incredible and sounds really good and professional, and also like it's a film. So we're gonna be doing this in Final Cut Pro. So let's jump into Final Cut Pro right now. And here I wanted you to be able to see the timeline and what it actually looks like when you're editing a video like this. If you want to have something curated for your film or your trailer or whatever you're trying to create, you want to make sure that you're creating it. It's one thing to search and find music that works for you. It's another thing to try to create music that works for a specific scenario. Editing to music properly, the visuals and the sound seem like they belong together, but actually creating something that is for a specific edit will make that feel even more. I mean, no one can find the sound anywhere else. When I am editing something like this, the first thing that I try to do is, have a concept in mind. And this is what the timeline looks like for this. So I wanted to make sure that I showed the best clips, the clips that were the most enticing for this film. Top here you have, a combination of the clips that were the most enticing, but you also have a combination of the audio that I felt was most enticing from the film. Sound bites, as far as like the words that I felt like really encapsulated the concept of the film. But you don't want to give it away. So sound design is really about layering sounds so that you're you're enhancing what's happening in your edit. So the concept that I started off with was making sure that I wanted to encapsulate time in this. So I wanted to have something ticking. We have a ticking clock, but we also have, enhancements around that. You want to make sure you're creating an atmosphere. You also want to make sure that you are creating rising effects. So a riser or a hit gives you that momentum into a scene and out of a scene. And then you want to have things like swishes and things that enhance movement in a scene or a shot. So you want to make sure you have layers. So you want to have atmospheres, you want to have risers, and you want to have hits, whooshes, and things that enhance what's happening on the screen. The first thing I start off with is making sure that I have an atmosphere. So when I was making this, I literally started off with the atmosphere of the night winds and the outer limits. So we're gonna make that right now. Let's go into this project file. We're gonna create a new project, and we're gonna make this just do that. All right, so I'm gonna start to layer this up. So we're gonna start with a riser. And a lot of these sounds that I use in these come from sound packs that I purchased, or even sound packs that I've from some of my subscriptions, or like some of the sounds come from Epidemic Sound. Some of the sounds come from different packs that I've purchased. And I can shout out those packs in the links below. All right, so we started off with a night wind, and what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to press the Q button to drop this at the very bottom. And this gives you that very low, just atmospheric sound. It gives you a tone to the room that you're creating here. You gotta think about like you're creating a location. What does that location sound like? So the first thing you want to start off with is that basically room tone or atmosphere of what it sounds like. And I wanted this to sound a little bit dark. So that undertone of darkness is there. And then we also use the outer limits, which is another sound. I'll let you hear that separately. Switched over my audio so you can hear it better. Very low, very tony sound. And it just sounds like atmosphere. And combining those two sounds together, the night winds gives a whooshy kind of, like it sounds like wind blowing into the camera. So those two combined make for that room tone or sound that we're trying to get. Then we created the ticking sound. I wanted to have something that sounded like a tick. And I had to create this by itself. So what I did was I downloaded a clock tick, and that's really all it is just one tick. And so what I decided to do is drop that down and cut this into a smaller clip so that I could time it like I wanted to. And honestly, all this is about is just like hearing it and seeing what sounds right. So like how soon did the next tick that I want it to be. And you can make that tick slow or fast or however you want it to be. So, depending on the timing, I just did it till I felt like it sounded right. Maybe let's see. That's a little bit too fast. So, all right. So I want the next clip to start there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this one, copy this, because you want it to be spaced out the same way. And now I can copy these two. And then I'm going to copy these 4. And then I'm going to copy these 8. And now we're building out that sound. Now we have that ticking clock sound, right? And making this is, it's simpler than it sounds. It's simpler than it seems after you see the whole thing. It's like, it seems like a lot, but when you do it layer by layer, it makes sense as to how it happens. So now we have that constant ticking noise. And from here, that's where I started to build out a lot of the things that I wanted to build out. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab some of the clips that I actually used so we can go by faster. But what I did was from here, I made sure that I took some time to figure out like what parts of the film that I want to have in this trailer to tell the story, but also not give away what not give away what the full story was. So I'm going to go back to the trailer. I'm going to pull those clips out. You can see I have those layered here at the bottom. Everything with these audio tracks here was what I started with. And I started to build off of that. So I'm going to grab these. And again, this may not be exactly the same. I'm just trying to get as close as possible to what I did, but this is the process of what I went through to make it happen. So now what I did was I went through and I found all of these clips that I felt like told the story. And I wanted this to have I think I'm gonna start this more like right here. Good. Okay. So
Well, I think the real problem is returning to society.
now I have all of these different sounds in here that were handpicked to put into this film, right? So, I switched between the different sounds. So now you have him talking, you have her talking here, now you have him talking, and that continues throughout. So now you have this dialogue kind of going back and forth between what's going on with this couple and also what's going on with the doctor and what he's saying. His stuff may be like, you don't really understand what he's saying. You may have to watch it again, which I like that. I like the fact that you have to watch it again to understand what he's saying. Theirs is a lot more clear. It actually feels a little bit, how would you say, soap opera-ish, but it is a quote unquote love story. So you need to have a little bit of that element in there too. So from here, what I decided to do was start to add in the clips that matched the words. So I started to add in things that match, like just B-roll at this point, that match what he was saying, what she was saying, and visually represented the words that they were trying to portray. So at this point, I started to grab some of the best clips that I like that kind of tell the story, and I layered that on top of the audio clips that I had. So we're gonna start to just grab these, just for the sake of time. I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna grab all of those layers, and this may take some time to figure out which parts that you need for your edit, but I go in here and then from here I just place them where they belong. So at this part, I wanted a very compelling image, and I felt like this moving image of her outside of the car was pretty compelling to draw people in. And then we go to a very still image, and then we go to another compelling image. Now this was built out based off of the additional sounds that I started to add. So I placed these clips in here kind of where I wanted them to be at, and then it was time to figure out how to actually show that, so that's where the additional sound design comes in at. So down here, I wanted to start this with a big kind of intro, right? So I wanted to draw people in with that. So what I did was I came in here and found some sounds to really bring that in. So I brought in a short sub, which is a boom or subwoofer sound, and I spaced that throughout the film. So let's go ahead and grab. Well, I can probably find it down here. So let's see, short sub right here. So we're gonna build out this. Here we go. So come down here, grab the short sub, and this needs to really boom and bring in that first clip.
Well, I think the
So there we go.
well, I think
And I believe what I felt like was
well, I think the real problem is returning to society.
it didn't boom enough, you know? So what I did was I came in, and it had a nice undertone to it, but it didn't have enough like bam. So that's where I brought in this Stadium A, which is another sound from a sound pack that I have. And I brought that in to here, which
Well, I think the real
is a more hit.
well, I think the real problem is returning to
And so that Stadium A is lined up with the ticking. So,
well, I think the real problem is returning to society.
and you can almost hear the sound that I'm trying to go for. So I'm listening to the tick,
Well, I think the real problem is returning to society.
and that's where the next one needs to go. So what I did was I took this, because I wanted this to continue throughout the film, to just keep it like enhancing, right? So
Well, I think the real problem is returning to society. And as you know, society
did that line up right? Yeah, it did actually. So what I wanted to do, and I wanted to show you this next, was like align this car slam with that audio, right? So I wanted to align that, and then
I think the real problem is returning to society.
so what you want to do is you want to get like a bit of it right. So that's right. And then what I did was I took this and I layered it again. So not only did I have it down here, I had it come in right there.
Well, I think the
And you
real
can hear
problem
it
is
underneath.
returning to society.
And it's kind of like bringing it in, but I felt like it wasn't enough. So at this point, I wanted it to hit and then rise back up to the hit again. So what I did was I took the Stadium sound and I copied it, and then I reversed it. So a hit and a riser is basically the same thing, just reversed. So when you have a hit, it's a big boom, and then it kind of fades down. A riser is nothing but a fade up to a hit, and it's just the reverse of each other. So what we're going to do is take this clip, go to modify, and then we're going to retime this and reverse the clip. I'm going to throw this away because I don't like seeing that. But well, actually, it may be helpful for you. So now we have,
Well, I think the real
and I just placed it on the next one,
problem is returning to society.
and it gives you this reverse type of feel. Now that's not exactly how I had it, so I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna copy what I have down here. So I have Stadium A, and then you can see one is reversed. This one is reversed. This one is a hit, lowering down into the riser. And so we just created our own riser. So I'm going to drop this down here. And
Well, I think the real problem is returning to society.
and it kind of just brings that whole thing full circle, honestly. So I'm gonna just keep. Now this may not be timed completely right, but is that okay? So where does the next one go? You're gonna have to.
Well, I think the real problem is returning to society.
So you can see that comes in there late, right? So that needs to be right here. And this can be pretty tedious, right? There's a way that you can, line these up so that you can just begin to copy and paste them like we did with the ticker. But I kind of like to, and you can tell where it needs to belong, right? So let's see, probably just needs that. It'd probably be right there. Good. So that sounds good, right? And then at this point, what we want to do is we want to, once we get this all the way down the film, we want to, and you can see this is kind of unorganized now. So copy, paste. This needs to be here. We're going to take our sub, keep moving it down. Copy, paste. This needs to be here. And I can trim this so that can drop down. All right, so now that's a little bit more organized. You can see it's kind of stepping in that direction. I don't remember if I put a riser in the middle of this, but I'm not sure. But at this point, this is where you go through, and like I said, this is not exactly like the other one. This is where you go through and you start to make your edits. So once you get that all built out below, all the way down, you start to make your edits based off of these hits, right? So now you have the B-roll, and you want even these clips to kind of change. And I don't think I did this yet, but the clips need to change. You want them to change with the ticks here. So that was a little bit off, right? So we want that to actually change with that, And even this one should change with this. So I'm lining up these cuts with the sound at this point. Okay, there we go. My computer's doing a lot right now, so. And even this door slam, you want that to line up with that hit down below. So we have this hit right here, so it could actually be a little bit. Okay, so it could actually be a little bit further that way. And now my computer is really struggling. There we go. So you can see that matches up with the door slam. So just continue to line up your cuts with the ticking noises and the different elements that you have added in there. Now, you may think we're done, but we're not. Because there's always more that you can add to a film. At this point, we have pretty much the base of what we need. But when I step away and I come back and I hear it, I feel like that it's not full enough. There's more things that we can add to it to make it a little bit more fuller. So what we did next was we decided to add in some more sounds to enhance that rise and fall. And I wanted to add something that felt a little bit more sci-fi. And that's where we came to the sound of this Odyssey, which is kind of like a vibrating sound or a resonating sound that just feels sci-fi. And here's what it sounds like. And I was like, I love that, right? But the problem with that sound is that it had a it had a kind of pace to it already, and we've already created our pace in our film, right? So the problem is that we can't really use that. So what I had to do was cut that up to sound like I wanted it to sound. So here's what we ended up creating, and I'm going to show you how to create this. So we made two different sounds there from the same sound. So what I did was I came in and I pulled this down, and sometimes I pick an area to just play with. Yeah. So what I decided to do was cut this up and place this in front of that. And now we have our own sound from that effect. And I just played around with the sound and just figured out like kind of what I wanted to do. And you can see this is not exactly like that, but there we go. That's what we created. That's all I did. So now I'm gonna cut this. I'm gonna bring this to the front of here, and I'm gonna place it just like my riser is. My riser and my hit are. I'm also gonna take this reverse riser and bring it to the front. I'm gonna allow that to bring in our scene as well. So in our opening scene, let's see, why is that doing that? There we go. So in our opening scene, our opening shot, we have a couple of things bringing that in. We have the tick right here of the clock. We also have this short sub that comes in, really undertone. And then we have the hit that hits right at that talk. And then we also have the riser that brings us into that tick. And then we have this new sound that we just added, which gives us a sci-fi element. So if you think about just this one section, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of elements, including, I mean, if we also include the undertone and the atmosphere that brings it in. And every time we hit, we want to bring this sound in again, which gives it just gives it that little bit more element sound. And like, and now we have built out something that sounds pretty good. And also it's original. You won't be able to find this sound anywhere else. No one can say that you took this. This sounds just like. Well, we made it. We made it here. No one can say that this sounds just like whatever because we made it right here. It's right here. All right. So now that we have that, I felt like it needed a little bit more. So I think it sounds great. We actually have a little hiccup there, but that's okay. We can fix that. I have 2 clips bringing in the same spot. Great. So that sounds awesome. And then, so now what we need to do is I felt like I needed to have a little bit more sound kind of that made sense for the element of the film. So we have the ticking, we have the sci-fi, one more element of this film was about unrest, like civil unrest. So I wanted to add in that element very slightly. So what I did was I went to YouTube and I found some Trump supporters chanting USA, which I felt like was a very, it was a chant that I felt like, didn't sway either, like too far, like politically left or too far politically right. You can take the chant USA and pretty much, mentally you can make it whatever you want to make it. You chanting USA could be like a positive, but also chanting USA in a sign of protest can also be seen slightly as negative, where you're not like, are you isolating the US, or are you just chanting on your country as far as like oh yeah, I want my country to be better. So it's that element, there's a chant, but it also is a chant that's not like, oh, that's a terrible chant to put in this film, or to sway someone to say, hey, I don't want to watch this film because it chants something that I don't believe in, So chanting USA is almost a middle ground type of sound. So I went through a couple of chants, but then I found this chant of people saying USA, and I felt like, hey, that works. So let's see if we can find that clip. It's actually a video clip of some Trump supporters chanting USA. Now, when I went to go find this, I actually found a clip that was of the insurrection. USA. So it actually comes from a pretty dark place, right? So what I did was I took this. Well, I'll actually show you exactly what I did. I took this and I found a good sounding USA. I think it was right there. I think it was that one right there. Yeah. So I cut it up, and then I right-clicked and I detached the audio, right? So now I have the audio of USA. Now the problem is the timing of the USA. It doesn't sound like it goes with what I wanted to go with. So I wanted it to fall in line with what I was, like the part of the film, the part of this. So it's a little bit too fast. If you hear it, it's like I need to be more like USA, USA, right? So what I wanted to do was go in here and retime this. So I'm going to retime this. I'm going to slow it down. And I played with this a little bit, but in the sake of time, I ended up with 72%, I believe. And now you can see like the start of this USA, which is right here in this waveform. And the second USA is right at the tick point right here. So it lines up pretty well. Now let's hear it. And it's pretty darn close, right? Like I said, my ticks might not be the same as the last one. So now we have this sound that, can be played like repeatedly throughout. So I'm going to line this up, and then I'm going to line this up too. I'm going to fade it out in the beginning and at the end, right? And it may not be exactly like I wanted it to be, but what I did from here was I didn't want it to be like super like noticeable. I wanted it to be underneath So what I did was I went ahead and copied all of these to be where I wanted them to be at, and then bam, and then bam, and then bam, and then bam, right? So now we have all that down below, right? Trump supporter, Trump supporter, Trump supporter. Cool. Now that doesn't sound right. So where does the next one need to go at? Oh, yeah, this needs to go with the, is it with that? Okay, so it skips a beat. Yeah, it skips a beat. There we go. So now we know exactly where it goes. Now what this adds to it adds like a bit of audio that is not just sound. It's actually saying something now. Good. Now we have, and you may not even have heard this the first time you saw the video, right? And the point of that is because I don't want you to hear it. I wanted to have layers. So now after I put that across the entire film, I selected them all and I created a new compound clip. And this new compound clip is spaced out perfectly. So now we have that sound, and I feel like it gives this little bit of an element. It's slow, so I love it, right? But I don't want it to be as noticeable. And then we have the ability to bring the underwater effect in and just drop that underneath there. And now this brings that sound down. So now it sounds like an undertone, right? It's not really like in your face, but if you really listen, you can hear it. And from there, what I decided to do is change this to atmospheric or ambience. So I changed the sound to ambience. So it adds a little bit of airiness to the sound, right? And then we came in and we decided to put a riser on this. So actually this spanned the length of the film, and we just rose the sound ever so slightly. So it started off, you can do it one or two ways. You can put in these little node points, or you can just fade it all the way up. I like to put in the node points because it gives you more control over how it fades up. And when you're making something like this, you want it to build all the way to the end. So let's go back to the original, and I'll show you what we did to wrap this up. So that's pretty much all we did. We laid that out like it was. And then we wanted to, at the end, we wanted to come back to the original sounds that we started with. So we brought in all these sounds, we rose them up all the way to the end. And when we get to the end,
To reprogram ourselves to be more effective members of society.
we added one more sound, which is the rise to power, which is a riser that I found. And where is that? Rise to power. Here we go. Rise to power, which is a very slow rise into a like gritty sound. Right? And then we ended that also on that hit. So that hit riser that we made,
Effective members of society.
which added that more hit. And then we also ended it with that short snub that added a little bit of sound at the end of it. So it has that resonating sound at the end of it, right? When we add those three elements together, the hit that we had, or the hit, reversed hit to riser that we had, which adds that kind of sound to it.
Reprogram ourselves to be more effective members of society.
It combines to be a really strong hit, which I love.
Members of society.
And that's pretty much it. Then we ended it. We ended that clip on the ticking noise. So we created this entire thing from scratch just now. I know this was a longer video, but I wanted to show you step by step how I created that. Hopefully that's helpful to you, showing you how I did that. A lot of this is going to come from you just being creative and sitting down with it and trying to figure out what you want to create from it. I learned this just by playing around with the sounds, and like I would hear other people making these type of videos, but I didn't know how they were doing it until I just sat down and played with the sounds and tried to layer the sounds like as I heard them. So that's how to do it, and make something from scratch. It may be a little bit tedious. It may take some time. It may be easier to use sound that's already created, but I feel like it's more rewarding in this way because you have something that's very unique. So let me know if you guys have any questions. You can find more videos like this in longer form with more in-depth information on our Patreon. You can join that community today by clicking in the link below. But we really appreciate you being a part of the community. And let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, and I will holler at you in the next video. Peace.